Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles marks the return of the series' best written story yet. The inclusion of some meaningful enhancements that tighten up the flow of gameplay and improve usability, as well as the addition of voice acting, are effective in modernizing this gem from a bygone time. But are they enough to cement its status as a timeless classic? The Kingdom of Ivalice has been beset by turmoil. The aftermath of a 50-year-long war with a neighboring nation has left the land depleted of resources. While the nobles are positioning for a power struggle in the wake of an unclear royal succession, the small folk, many of whom even fought for the kingdom during the war, are left to their own devices. This is where the game introduces us to the story of Ramza Beowulf, the forgotten hero who saved the realm from sinister machinations. As already implied, the thematic undercurrents of class struggle and the ambitions of man are constantly present in this recounting of a tale that is all but erased from the history books. This story setup is immediately successful in stirring up intrigue and tying back its message into real-world affairs. The protagonist Ramza, who is of noble birth, is idealistic, stubbornly so. His altruistic deeds, while saving lives, are never recognized and even actively wiped from the annals of time. This could easily serve as a metaphor for how selfless and good-willed acts are being overlooked in modern society. On the other hand, there is Delita Hyrule, Ramza's childhood friend, who comes from a common background. He is essentially sharing the same ambition as Ramza in uprooting the prevailing class system in Ivalice.
You may not see the world beyond your high walls, but that does not mean they mark its boundaries.
Although Ramza is principled to his core, Delita trails his path with a dangerous sense of pragmatism, scheming and turning various factions against one another to further his position in this hierarchical society. Also, he can forcefully enact the changes he deems necessary. What makes this dynamic so endlessly fascinating is that the narrative does not offer easy answers. Ramza's way is morally sound, honorable even, but does it result in the abolition of an unjust system? At the same time, can Delita's manipulative approach result in lasting change? During his rise to power, Delita forms a bond with Ivalice's princess Ovilia. Without getting into spoiler territory, let's stay within vague terms and say that they are both people who were originally thrust into a role that they had no choice but to accept. They are both aware of each other's shackles. Delita chose to break those shackles and find his way to the top by any means necessary, even using Ovilia as a pawn, essentially betraying his own past self. This is the genius aspect of FF Tactics. It doesn't portray these dynamics as good or bad, it poses them as questions. For the betterment of the world, were Delita's actions justified? Can a lonely man at the top even enforce durable reforms? Is Ramza's devotion to his cause, even when nobody notices, really going to change the world? Final Fantasy Tactics tells its story by painting its characters in shades of grey rather than black and white.
They are all of them swept up in a mighty current. A current they cannot see or feel. I simply swim against it. Nothing more. We'll meet again, I should hope.
Delita! Wait!
As opposed to real-time strategy, there is an inherent accessibility in turn-based strategy games, such as Fire Emblem and Tactics Ogre. Taking your sweet time between turns and calculating exactly how far allied and enemy units can move guarantees a cozy tempo. However, this innate advantage can also pose a threat to the overall enjoyment of a game, if not balanced out properly. Steaming through any and all opponents with masterful strategic decisions is only fun for a few times, until it becomes very boring. To counterbalance that, FF Tactics implements friction with numerous decisions like implementing permadeath, a percentage chance of failing your intended actions, and cranking up the difficulty. While writing this, I remember all the times when my clutch revive spell would fail and I either had to say goodbye to a unit or restart the encounter. FF Tactics is by no means an easy game, but that makes it all the sweeter when you overcome the trials and tribulations and come out on top.
Power thrumming in skies above, as the refulgent blade now strike! Hallowed bolt! Farewell!
Sorry, my friends.
The timeline on the left hand side of the screen that lets you keep track of the turn order is a perfect addition to the remaster, as it gives you even more tools to plot out your ideal battle plan. Ranged attacks that are executed with a delay or area of effect magic spells are all mapped out in the timeline, allowing for an easy overview of the battlefield. Ramses' forces are already small in number, and so every clash feels more like a covert operation, befitting his mission to fight the real enemies lurking in the shadow. Every fight feels personal, swift, and is constantly engaging, precisely because you can only bring a handful of your best troops. It is here where the Ivalice Chronicles adds some more quality of life improvements. On the press of a button, you can speed up animations, coming in helpful while grinding or if you just want to progress through the game faster. And the camera controls provide an effortless method of overlooking the beautiful 3D battlegrounds from every angle, along with an all-encompassing top-down view. The skirmishes are infinitely enjoyable, pushing the frontline further ahead with your tanky melee units, hitting enemies from behind for a guaranteed hit with your glass cannons, setting up devastating magic attacks, or even manipulating an enemy's or allies' stats never gets old. The visually stunning maps also offer great tactical potential. The variety ranges from flat meadows that reward upfront confrontation, all the way up to high castle walls that require a different approach. Each map is unique and uniquely fantastic.
So here it ends.
The heart of FF Tactics' gameplay brilliance lies in its job system. Most fans of the series can agree that a job system is usually welcomed, often even celebrated. I'm willing to offer myself up as the contrarian here and say that most FF job systems have at least one glaring flaw. They typically take a long time to unveil their full potential. That even goes for FF5's much lauded, some would say series-defining iteration of the job system. The acquisition of jobs is tied to story progression. So first, you must chug along through the story for a good while, then level up job after job, before getting to the real meat and potatoes of the game, mixing and matching job abilities. FF Tactics says, why not start at the fun part? From the get-go, you have a variety of jobs in your repertoire, from squires and knights to chemists and various spellcasters. Each job possesses 4 types of abilities, namely action, reaction, support and movement abilities. When choosing a job, you automatically equip the action ability set for that job. Think black magic for a black mage. And then you can also add another set of action abilities on top of that from another job, as well as use any reaction, support or movement ability from any other job the unit has learned. You can display a job tree anytime in the equipment menu and look at the requirements to unlock other more advanced jobs. None are gated behind advancing the story, thus you'll find yourself constantly micromanaging the career paths of your various units. This gives you a plethora of short-term and long-term goals to work towards over the course of the game's story, and incentive to check out every job the game has to offer. FF Tactics' job system is deceptively simple and enormously rewarding. Your units gain experience by successfully executing any action. With this free-form progression structure, it encourages players to experiment and try out more unorthodox methods of leveling. Hence, attacking friendly guest units or throwing stones at a far-off enemy become viable tactics to get your hands on more valuable XP. Add to that the fact that certain jobs have tools that can be used for meta progression. Take the Orator of Thief for example, who can permanently boost and decrease certain stats of your units or steal extremely useful weapons and gear from boss enemies. There is much more under the hood here that I can't get into in the confines of a review, but it's this masterful blend of simple mechanics that allow for deep customization that makes FF Tactics stand out among any of its peers.
What? Why persist in such folly? Honest work would see them die old in bed. Yet they choose instead this early grave.
When FF Tactics originally launched in 1997, it was overshadowed by the juggernaut FF7. FF7, especially at the time, was way more impressive from a technical viewpoint. Full 3D characters in a wholly realized world with a setting that is much more contemporary than Ivalice. On the surface, it's easy to see why more people flock towards Cloud's adventure. Fast forward to the present day and the tables have turned. I don't mean to diminish FF7's status as a groundbreaking game. Nevertheless, it's clear that FF Tactics visuals have aged much more gracefully with its fusion of timeless pixel art and 3D dioramas. The lack of epic set pieces is compensated with character and charm. In special moments, the camera will move around the stage in a cinematic style, suggesting a feeling of importance. Paired with Akihiko Yoshida's illustrious character art, the graphics evoke a sense of taking a glimpse into the history of this medieval fantasy world, almost like a play unfolding before your very eyes. To somewhat freshen up the look of the game, while preserving the archaic ambience, the remaster added a sort of grain filter and smoothed out the pixel art, while retouching some details by hand. It's very fitting and only adds to the immaculate vibes. The biggest and most impactful addition to the remaster is the inclusion of voice acting. The performances of each character, be they minor or major, are outstanding. Original director and writer of FF Tactics, Yasumi Matsuno, personally contributed to the enhanced edition by adjusting the script to lend itself more to voice dialogue. The antiquated jargon the inhabitants of Ivalice use is very reminiscent of FF12 and on par with the best in the series. The Ivalician soundscape never ceases to amaze. Composers Hitoshi Sakimoto and Masaharu Iwata perfectly encapsulate the nature of this fictional place in sound. The big orchestral pieces and quieter character themes so wonderfully condense the struggle of finding your footing in a world that is plunged into utter disarray into music. The opening theme that goes from whimsical tingles to a blasting fanfare consistently managed to invigorate my fighting spirits anytime I booted up the game to rejoin Ramza on his quest. The Ivalice Chronicles was developed at Square Enix's Creative Studio 3. Besides the ongoing MMO FF14, their last big game was Final Fantasy XVI. People who enjoyed some of the comprehensive lore compendiums in that game will rejoice here. FF Tactics has various archive entries on notable characters, locations and terminology, which helps with keeping track of the sometimes overwhelming number of lords and dukes the game throws at you. To brush up on Ramza's current standing in the story, there's a feature called State of the Realm. Accessing State of the Realm displays a map of Ivalice along with a timeline that shows every major plot event and action taken by each character or relevant faction. Following a story this drenched in political intrigue can sometimes be a lot to process, and this tool certainly alleviates that. Apart from that, the remaster comes equipped with buttery smooth menus that not only look good but feel good as well. All of these features ensure a user-friendly experience and bring FF Tactics up to par with modern sensibilities. Sure, there are some minor nitpicks I could bring up at this point, like why not make the fast forward option a toggle instead of having to hold down the button? Or why not allow for an option to completely disable random encounters when you already have the option of just declining them? Some fans would probably criticize the absence of extra content from the War of the Lions version, though I don't think I went away from this phenomenal game feeling like I was missing something. For purists or people who are curious about the original, the classic version is bundled in with the enhanced version. and it uses the renowned translation from the War of the Lions version. The question I asked at the beginning, whether Final Fantasy Tactics can truly be considered a timeless classic, is admittedly a little beside the point. The game is already beloved, it is hugely influential, and it is already undoubtedly considered a video game classic. With a narrative that's this great and this thematically rich, and a job system that puts any other to shame, how can you not give this masterpiece the laurels it deserves? The question is more whether the remaster adds the necessary bells and whistles to make this game enjoyable for the players of today. To answer that question, let's recount. Swift user experience? Check. A variety of accessibility features? Check. Stellar voice acting? Check. Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, checks all the necessary boxes to catapult this legendary strategy RPG into the modern era. Ivalice is back, and this time let's hope it stays.
Ramza, do you remember when your father showed us how to make a whistle of a blade of grass?
Now I want to know what you think. Do you also think that Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles is a great remaster and the masterpiece that I made it out to be in this review? Or do you have another opinion on it? Let me know in the comments below, leave a like if you liked this review, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye!